My name is Kurosawa Ren, and I am, according to every rule of the universe I apparently got dropped into, supposed to be the villain. I know this because I woke up 3 months ago with memories that were not mine, memories of a story. A whole, complete, beautifully written romantic story, where a gentle girl named Fujiwara Sora falls in love with the most popular boy in school, Hayashi Akito. The story is called Morning Light, Evening Star, and it was apparently a very well-loved web novel in my previous life. I know every chapter. I know every confession. I know every tearful reunion and every dramatic rain scene. And I, Kurosawa Ren, am the obstacle, the scheming rich boy, the one who tries to keep Sora and Akito apart because of some personal grudge that, honestly, even I thought was stupid when I was reading it. In the original story, I spread rumors about Sora, trick Akito into thinking she said terrible things about him, and generally make everyone's life a misery until the hero figures me out and I get publicly humiliated in chapter 22. I remember reading that chapter and thinking, wow, Ren really deserved that. And now I am Ren. So here is what a smart person would do. Avoid the main characters entirely. Do not interact. Stay in the background. Graduate quietly. Escape the plot. Here is what I did instead. I walked into school on a perfectly normal Tuesday morning, saw Akito standing in the hallway looking absolutely lost while holding Sora's dropped notebook, and thought to myself, I should just return this for her. That was it. That was the beginning of my destruction. Hey, I said, walking up to Akito. That's Fujiwara's. She dropped it near the shoe lockers. Akito looked at me. I had never been close to him in the story. We were rivals, technically, but the cold, distant kind. He had dark eyes and the sort of face that made people stop walking in hallways, which I had always thought was a bit unfair for everyone else trying to get to class. He blinked. You know her? We're in the same class, I said. Oh. He looked down at the notebook, then back at me. Do you think she's okay? She seemed upset this morning. I stared at him. This was not in the script. In the original story, Akito was cool, untouchable, the kind of guy who spoke in perfectly timed lines that made girls fall over. Not the kind of guy who asked the villain if a quiet girl was okay. I said the first thing that came to my mind. I have no idea. I don't really talk to her. But you noticed she dropped her notebook. I opened my mouth, closed it. I have good peripheral vision. He smiled, just slightly, and something in my chest did a very strange and inconvenient thing. No, I told myself, absolutely not. You are not the love interest. You are the obstacle. You are going home, studying, and staying far away from both of these people. I went home. I studied the next morning. I was back at school, and somehow standing next to Akito at the vending machine, because we both wanted the same canned coffee and ran out of polite ways to decide who got it first. Rock, paper, scissors? He offered. Fine. He won. He gave me the can anyway. You looked like you needed it more. I'm fine, I said, while clearly not being fine. He laughed, softly, like it was just between us. Reader, I was so deeply in trouble and I did not even know it yet. Here is the thing about being reincarnated into a story you've already read. You think you have all the advantages. You know the plot. You know the characters. You know what happens and when. What you do not account for is that you are now inside it. You are breathing in real and present, and so are all the people around you. And real people do not follow scripts. Akito was supposed to be cold to me. Sora was supposed to be quiet and avoid me. The story was supposed to run on its own tracks. Instead, by the end of that first week, Akito had saved a seat for me in the library. Sora had thanked me for returning the notebook and given me a small bag of homemade cookies like I was a stray cat she had decided to adopt. And I was sitting in the middle of a situation I had absolutely no plan for. The villain, I reminded myself. You are supposed to be the villain. The villain does not accept cookies from the heroine. The villain does not share vending machine coffee with the hero. The villain absolutely does not sit in the library at 3 p.m. helping the hero study for a chemistry test because, and I quote, "You explain it better than the teacher, Kurosawa." How do you even know this stuff? Akito asked, leaning over my notes. I read a lot, I said, which was not technically a lie. I had read the entire curriculum twice before school even started, because I was nervous, and stress studying is a perfectly valid coping strategy. "You're kind of amazing," he said, very casually, like he was commenting on the weather. I looked at my notes very carefully and said nothing. Inside my head, every alarm in the building was going off. Because in the original story, the villain Kurosawa Ren never helped anyone. He only tore things down. He was bitter and cold, and he pushed everyone away. And somewhere between the vending machine and the library, I had become someone else entirely. And Akito was looking at me like I was someone worth knowing. This was going to be a problem. Let me be very clear about one thing. I am not a romantic person. In my previous life, I read romance novels the way other people watch cooking shows. It is nice to look at. You appreciate the craft. You have no intention of doing it yourself because the kitchen always ends up on fire. So when I decided to play matchmaker between Akito and Sora, I told myself it was purely logical. The story needed to happen. The plot had a shape. If I pushed them together, maybe the universe would settle, the story would finish, and I could go back to being a background character who graduates and disappears. This was, in hindsight, the most catastrophic decision of my new life. It started simple enough. I knew from the novel that Akito had noticed Sora, but was too cautious to approach her first. In the original story, they met because she tripped and he caught her. Classic. A little boring, but effective. The problem was that 3 months had passed, and they had somehow not had their fated staircase moment yet. This was my fault, because I had been accidentally inserting myself into Akito's daily schedule and Sora's cookie delivery rotation and disrupting the natural flow of events without meaning to. So I made a plan. Step 1. Get them in the same place at the same time. Step 2. Engineer a reason for them to talk. Step 3. Leave. Step 4. Let the romance proceed normally. Step 5. Go home and sleep without guilt. It was a foolproof plan. I am a very smart person. I got into this school on academics alone. I can handle a little social engineering. "Sora," I said, catching her after class on Wednesday, "do you know the art room on the 3rd floor?" She nodded. She had large eyes and a very calm expression, the kind of girl who seemed to process everything slowly and then say something surprisingly wise. I liked her. Not in a romantic way, more in the way you like a very peaceful houseplant. "There is a small exhibit being set up for the cultural fair. I heard you paint. You should go look. Thursday, 4 o'clock. She looked at me for a long moment. "Did someone ask you to tell me this?" "No, I just thought you'd enjoy it." She tilted her head. "That's nice of you, Kurosawa. Don't read into it." She smiled. Small, quiet. "Okay." Then I went to find Akito. This part was more complicated, because Akito had recently developed a habit of finding me first, which was deeply inconvenient for my plans of avoiding him. I located him on the rooftop eating lunch alone, which, in the novel, was where he went when he wanted to think. In the novel, Sora found him there by accident. Since that had not happened yet, I was going to nudge it. "There's an art exhibit being set up Thursday," I said, sitting down beside him, because apparently my body did that automatically now. 4th floor. 3rd floor, he corrected. "I heard about it. Are you going?" He looked at me sideways. "Are you?" "No." "Then maybe I will." I stared at him. What does that mean? It means lately, the most interesting things happen wherever you're not expecting them to. He said this completely normally, like it was a simple observation about weather patterns, and then went back to his lunch. My brain was doing something embarrassing. Thursday came. I stayed very far from the art room. I sat in the library and read, and was extremely busy not thinking about whether my plan was working. At 4:30, my phone buzzed. It was Akito. We had exchanged numbers for the chemistry study sessions, which had been purely academic and practical, and not at all something I looked forward to every week. The message said, "You didn't come." I stared at this message for a long time. Then I typed back, "I told you I wasn't going." Fujiwara was there. She's nice. Good. This was good. This was the plan working. Great. I typed. We talked for a while. She mentioned you suggested she come. Oh no. She said you've been kind to her lately. I didn't know you two were close. We're not. Then why did you help her? I put my phone face down on the table and took a very long breath. Then I picked it up again. Because she's good, I typed. She deserves good things. There was a long pause, long enough that I thought maybe he had gone home and I could stop stressing. Then, you're strange, Kurosawa. Then, I mean that in a good way. Then, after another pause, do you want to get food tomorrow? Just us. Not study stuff. I put the phone down again, stared at the ceiling. The ceiling had no advice. This was not part of the plan. Akito was supposed to be thinking about Sora. He was supposed to be falling into the gentle rhythm of a love story that had been written for him. He was supposed to be looking at her, not asking me to dinner. I typed back. That sounds like it could be misunderstood. By who? Anyone watching? I'm not worried about anyone watching. Are you coming or not? I should have said no. I should have invented a conflict. I should have reminded myself, firmly and clearly, that I was the villain in this story, and villains do not go on friendly dinners with the male lead that are somehow not dates but feel dangerously close to it. I typed, fine. But I'm picking the place. He sent back a single laughing emoji. I sat in the library for another 20 minutes doing absolutely no reading, and then I packed my bag and walked home feeling like someone had quietly rearranged all the furniture in a room I thought I knew by heart. The plan was supposed to make things simpler. Instead, I had somehow made everything significantly more complicated. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, was that when Akito's name appeared on my phone, something in my chest did not feel like danger at all. It felt like morning. I picked a small noodle place near the station. Nothing fancy. Public enough to be obviously casual. I arrived first, sat down, and told myself this was purely friendly. 2 people eating. Extremely normal. Happened all the time. Not a single part of this required thinking about. Akito walked in 7 minutes late, slightly out of breath, and said, "Sorry, I ran into my homeroom teacher," and then sat down across from me and smiled, and I realized immediately that I had made a terrible mistake in agreeing to this. Not because anything was wrong, because everything was annoyingly fine. He was easy to sit across from. He looked at the menu and made small sounds of consideration and asked what I usually got, and when I told him, he said, "Then I'll get that too," without even checking the price, which was either very trusting or very rich, and I was not sure which. "So," he said, once the food arrived, "tell me something I don't know about you." That's a very strange conversation opener. "I'm curious about you." He said this without any hesitation, like it was not a thing that would make a person's brain go slightly sideways. "We've been talking for months, but I feel like you only show me the edges. Maybe the edges are all there are." He looked at me with those dark eyes. "I don't believe that." I looked at my noodles. "I used to read a lot," I said, "before." "I still do." "What kind?" "Everything. Novels, mostly." I hesitated. "Romance, sometimes." He raised his eyebrows. "Seriously? Don't make that face. Romance is a legitimate genre." "I'm not making a face." "You are absolutely making a face." He laughed. Actually laughed, not just smiled, and the sound of it was so genuine and uncomplicated that I felt something inside me loosen in a way that was genuinely alarming. "Okay, maybe a small face," he said. "Do you have a favorite?" "Do not say the title of the novel you are currently living in," I told myself. "Not particularly," I said. "I like stories where people figure out they've been wrong about something important." He considered this. "Like a misunderstanding?" "More like, they had a version of reality that felt true, and then something happens that makes them see it differently, and they have to decide what to do with that." Akito was quiet for a moment. "That sounds like it could be painful." "It usually is," I said, "but it's better than staying wrong." He was looking at me in a way I could not entirely interpret. "Kurosawa, what? Did something happen to you? Before this school year?" My chopsticks stopped moving. "What do you mean?" "You're careful," he said, "like someone who learned to be careful, not naturally cautious, carefully cautious, like you had to become it." I stared at him. In the novel, Akito was described as perceptive. I had always read that as meaning he was good at noticing things about Sora. Small moments, the way she looked when she was sad, the way she laughed when she thought no one was watching. It had not occurred to me that perceptive meant he would turn it in my direction. "You're overthinking it," I said. "Maybe." He picked up his bowl. "Or maybe I'm finally thinking about the right thing." I did not ask what that meant. I was too afraid of the answer. We stayed for almost 2 hours. We talked about school and books, and a hiking trip he took with his family last summer, and a documentary I watched once that I could not stop thinking about. At some point, the restaurant got quieter around us, and I realized it was later than I thought. "I should go," I said. "Yeah." He stood up when I did, which was unnecessary. "Thanks for picking the place. It was good. It's just noodles. Good noodles. And good company." He looked at me steadily. "You know, most people seem different when you get close to them. Smaller somehow. You're the opposite. That's not a normal thing to say." "I know. I thought you should hear it anyway." I walked home with my hands in my pockets and a very serious conversation happening in my head. The conversation went like this. Me, "This is fine." Also me, "This is not fine at all." Me, "He is just friendly. Some people are just friendly." Also me, "He looked at you like you were a book he wanted to read cover to cover." Me, "You are being dramatic." Also me, "You came home with a feeling in your chest like someone replaced your ribs with warm light. Be honest." Me, "I hate you." Also me, "Yeah, me too." The next morning I arrived at school with a plan, a real one this time, better than the last. I was going to be polite and distant. I was going to remember my role. I was going to put Akito and Sora in the same room, let the story happen, and step back into the background where I belonged. I walked into the classroom. Akito was already there. He looked up when I came in. He smiled. Just at me, like I was the thing he had been waiting for. The plan dissolved entirely. Someone started a rumor. I found out about it the way I found out about most things. I was standing near a group of people who had not noticed me yet. My talent for being overlooked had been quite useful before I started accidentally becoming friends with the most visible person in school. Now it was mostly ironic. "Apparently Kurosawa and Hayashi have been going out alone a lot," said a girl near the shoe lockers. "Like, to eat and stuff." "What? Kurosawa? Seriously?" "I know, right? He's so quiet. Didn't think Hayashi would bother." "Do you think they're actually friends, or is Kurosawa just following him around?" I had a very mature and measured response to this, which was to walk away without engaging, go to the bathroom, look at my reflection in the mirror for approximately 30 seconds, and then have a small and private crisis. In the original story, there was a rumor arc, but it was about Sora. Someone spread false things about her, and Akito defended her, and that was a turning point in their relationship. It was an important chapter. This was not that. This was people noticing that Akito and I kept appearing in the same places, which was real and not a rumor at all, which was somehow worse. I went to class. I sat down. I was completely calm. Akito dropped a note on my desk when the teacher turned around, an actual physical paper note, folded into a small square, like we were in elementary school. I unfolded it under the desk. It said, "I heard there's a rumor. Sorry if it's causing trouble." I wrote back, "It's not your fault." He wrote, "Still, are you okay?" I stared at that. Then I wrote, "Why are you asking me that, instead of worrying about your own reputation?" The note came back faster than I expected. "Because you matter more right now." I folded the note very precisely and put it in my bag and paid extreme attention to the rest of the lesson and did not think about those 5 words at all. After school it rained. Not a polite drizzle. A full, committed, dramatic downpour of the kind that shows up in chapter endings of romance novels to signal that something important is happening. I hated it. I stood under the school entrance roof with my bag and no umbrella because I had checked the weather app that morning and it said, "Clear skies," and I had trusted it, which was my mistake. Akito appeared beside me. He had an umbrella. He had prepared for this. "I'll walk you to the station," he said. "I'm fine. It's really raining. I've seen rain before. Kurosawa, Hayashi." He opened the umbrella and held it over both of us and started walking, which left me 2 choices: stand in the rain alone to make a point, or walk beside him. I walked beside him. The umbrella was large enough for 2 people, but we still had to stand close. I was very aware of this. I am sure he was not. He was probably thinking about Sora, or homework, or dinner. About the rumor, he said, as we walked. You don't have to address it. I want to. He paused. We were waiting at a crosswalk. The rain was loud around us. I don't care what people say about me, but I don't want you to be in an uncomfortable position because of something that started because of me. It started because I kept showing up places you were. Because I kept asking you to. Akito. I used his first name without thinking. We both noticed. I kept going. It's fine, really. I don't have much of a reputation to protect anyway. I'm not involved with anyone. No one's feelings are getting hurt. He was quiet. What? I said. Nothing. A pause. I just think more people's feelings are involved than you realize. The light changed. We crossed. I did not ask what he meant. I was getting very good at not asking what he meant. At the station, he waited until I was through the gates before he left. I know, because I looked back. He was still standing there, umbrella open, watching, and he raised one hand when he saw me turn. I waved back like a completely normal person, and then stood on the platform and thought, this is a problem. Not the rumor, not the rain, not even the umbrella. The problem was that I had spent 3 months trying to push Akito towards Sora, and somewhere in those 3 months, I had started being the one who needed pushing. And the even bigger problem, the one I had been refusing to look at directly, was that I thought I might already be falling. I should have talked to Sora sooner. In my defense, I was deep in a personal crisis. When a person is managing the twin disasters of I am the villain in a romance novel, and I may have romantic feelings for the person I was supposed to make miserable, there is not a lot of remaining mental space for side quests. But Sora found me first. She came to find me in the library on a Friday afternoon with 2 cups of tea from the vending machine, which was exactly the kind of thing Sora did that made it impossible not to like her. Here, she said, setting one in front of me. You looked cold when I saw you in the hall. I wasn't cold. You were hugging your own arms. I was thinking. She sat down across from me. I looked at her face. She had the expression of someone who had decided to say something and was doing the courtesy of letting me have a few seconds first. Go ahead, I said. She blinked. What? Whatever you came to say. Go ahead. She folded her hands on the table. You like Akito. The library was very quiet. I could hear someone turning a page 3 shelves away. That is a significant claim, I said. It's not a claim. It's something I noticed. She looked at me with that calm steadiness she had. I've been watching both of you. Since you returned my notebook, actually. The way you look at him when he's not looking. The way you leave before things get too comfortable, like you're scared. I'm not scared. Kurosawa. She said my name gently. It's okay. Something in my chest pulled tight. It's not okay. You and Akito are supposed to. I stopped. She tilted her head. Supposed to what? I could not exactly say. You are the heroine of this story, and he is your love interest, and I was not even supposed to have a name beyond the antagonist. You'd be good together, I said instead. You're similar, calm, thoughtful. He's kind. You're kind. It makes sense. Does it have to make sense? Love stories usually make sense, I said, which was a very interesting sentence to say out loud. Sora looked at me quietly. Then she said, I think you've been making his life better. Genuinely. Not as a villain. Not as an obstacle. As someone real. I did not have an answer for that. I also, she continued, with a small, slightly amused expression that I was not expecting from someone so generally peaceful, have been talking to someone. For a few weeks now. Someone from the art club. And Akito knows. I stared at her. His name is Matsumoto Hiro, she said. He's very gentle, and he brings me persimmons from his grandmother's garden, which is extremely charming. A pause. I am telling you this because I think you have been holding yourself back for my sake, and you don't need to. The library was still very quiet. Oh, I said. Yes. So you and Akito are not. We are friends, she said. We have always been more suited to being friends. He is very nice, but he doesn't make me feel the way Hiro does. She picked up her tea. He does, however, make a very specific face when your name comes up in conversation. What kind of face? She smiled, just slightly, a very soft one. I put my head down on my arms on the table, which was the most undignified I had been in this library in 3 months, and Sora very kindly did not comment on it. After a moment, she said, "You really did read too many romance novels, didn't you? How do you know about that?" Akito mentioned it. Of course he did. I thought I knew how the story went, I said, into my arms. I thought I knew the ending. Maybe the story got a different author, she said. Somewhere along the way. I sat up, looked at her. She was completely serene, like someone who had just sorted a very complicated filing system and was satisfied with the result. "This is embarrassing," I said. "A little," she agreed, "but you'll survive it. If he doesn't feel the same way, Kurosawa." She looked at me with infinite patience. "That boy changed his entire lunch schedule to be near the library. He carries an extra umbrella now. He saved your study notes into a folder he labeled important on his phone, and then pretended he had not when I asked about it." A pause. "He feels the same way." I looked at her for a long moment. "You would have been a terrible villain," she added pleasantly, and picked up her tea. I had a plan. Again, you would think I would learn. I was going to find a quiet moment. State my feelings clearly and directly, the way a mature person handles these things. Keep it simple, no dramatics. If he said no, I would thank him for his honesty, maintain dignity, and then find a different library to study in for the next year. I did not account for Akito finding me first. He was waiting by my shoe locker on Monday morning, just standing there with his bag over one shoulder and a slightly nervous expression I had never seen on him before, which was immediately alarming because Akito was composed. He was always composed. He had the energy of someone who had figured himself out. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Hello to you too," I said, opening my locker. "Sora told me she talked to you." I paused. "What did she say?" "She said you've been holding back, because of her." I closed my locker, turned to face him. The hallway was filling up around us, other students arriving, noise building, and Akito was looking at me like we were the only 2 people in it. "I thought you liked her," I said. "I thought so too, for a while," he said, "and then I met you." "That's not how it works." "Apparently it is, for me." He was nervous. I could see it now. The slight tension in his jaw, the way his hand was gripping his bag strap. Akito Hayashi, perfect, effortless, the kind of person stories wrote themselves about, was nervous because of me. "I've been trying to find the right moment for weeks. Sora finally told me to stop waiting, or she was going to tell you herself, which felt worse. She said she wouldn't interfere. She also said she is a person, not a plot point, and I thought that was very specifically aimed at me." I almost laughed. Almost. "Akito," I said his name carefully. "I should tell you something too." He looked at me, waiting. "I came into this school year with a very specific idea of how things were going to go," I said. "And I had a role I was supposed to play, which was not a good one. And I had reasons to stay away from people, to be cold, to not let things in." A pause. "And then I met you at a vending machine, and you just gave me the coffee. You looked tired." "That's not the point. The point is," I stopped, started again. "I have been trying very hard to talk myself out of this for months. I kept telling myself you belonged in someone else's story, but maybe I belong in mine." He was very still. "I like you," I said, "in a way that has made studying chemistry significantly harder because you sit next to me and I can't think properly, which is very inconvenient." A beat of silence. Then Akito laughed, not a small laugh, a real one surprised out of him, and then he stepped forward, and I realized he was very close, and the hallway was still full of people, and I was not sure what to do with my hands. "Kurosawa Ren," he said. "What?" "I have liked you since the vending machine." That was the first week of school. I know. You gave me your coffee because you liked me. I gave you my coffee because you looked like you needed it, and I wanted an excuse to know your name. He was smiling. It worked. That is the least dramatic confession of feelings I have ever heard. You expected drama? I expected a rainstorm at minimum. He looked out the window. It was a clear, sunny morning. I could wait for it to rain. Do not wait for it to rain. Then tell me what you want. I looked at him, the boy who was supposed to be someone else's story, who had been stubbornly, persistently, annoyingly interested in the edges of me until I showed him the rest, who carried extra umbrellas and gave away coffee and saved notes in folders labeled important. I want to try, I said, if you want to. I've wanted to since October, he said. Yes, absolutely yes. The bell rang. Around us, students rushed to class. Somewhere down the hall, someone dropped a stack of books. Normal, ordinary Monday morning. Nothing about it looked like the scene I would have written. It was better. Being in a relationship with Akito Hayashi was, I want to state clearly, very wonderful. It was also, I want to state equally clearly, very terrifying. Not because of him. He was gentle and consistent and remembered small things I mentioned in passing, like the documentary I had been wanting to watch, which he found and sent me a link to with the message, "Watch it with me." He was the kind of person who showed up for things without being asked, who made space for me naturally without making it a performance. The terrifying part was me. I had spent months being careful, edges only, no more than necessary. And now there was someone who actively wanted to see past the edges, and I had to keep making the choice, every single day, to let him. "You're doing it again," Akito said. We were in the library, our library now. I had started thinking of it. 2 months into whatever we were, which we had not fully labeled because I found labels slightly stressful, and Akito found my finding them stressful slightly funny, and we had reached a comfortable arrangement. "Doing what?" I said, not looking up from my book. "Going somewhere else in your head." He reached over and tapped the page I was on. "You've read that same page 4 times. I'm a thorough reader. Ren." He used my first name so naturally now. I was still not entirely used to it. Something in my chest always moved when he did. I put the book down. "I'm just thinking." "About?" "Whether I'm going to mess this up." He was quiet. Then, "Why would you mess it up?" "Because I'm not." I stopped, tried again. I spent a long time believing I was the kind of person who made things worse. For people. And it's hard to stop believing that, even when evidence suggests otherwise. Akito closed his own book. He reached across the table and put his hand over mine. "You made things better," he said. "For me. From the start. You don't have to be convinced of that on a schedule, but I'm going to keep showing you until it sticks." I looked at our hands, then at him. "That's going to take a while," I said. "I have time," he said. And he meant it. I could tell. He meant it the way he meant everything, without decoration. I turned my hand over under his. "Okay," I said. "Okay," he said. We went back to our books. His knee bumped mine under the table and stayed there. I did not move away. It was the most ordinary moment. It was also, privately, one of the best. There were other moments, harder ones. The one where a classmate asked, loudly, in front of several people, if we were actually together or what, and I froze, and Akito said yes, without hesitation, and then looked at me to check, and I said yes, 1 second later, and the classmate said weird, and walked away, and Akito looked at me, and I looked at him, and we both started laughing at exactly the same time. The one where I told him, haltingly, about feeling like I had come into my own life with the wrong instructions, not the full truth, but close enough, and he listened without trying to fix it. He just listened, and then he said, "I think you wrote better instructions on the way." The one where his friends met me and were confused and wary, and one of them, a loud boy named Tanaka, said directly to my face, "No offense, but you always seemed cold, like I thought you didn't talk to people." "I didn't," I said, "mostly." "What changed?" I looked at Akito, who was pretending not to listen. "Someone gave me their coffee," I said. Tanaka looked between us. Then he said, "That tracks, actually," and accepted me into the group with no further questions, which was the most efficient social process I had experienced. Sora came to our little library study group one afternoon. She brought Hiro, who turned out to be quiet and artistic, and the kind of person who used long pauses before speaking because he meant everything he said. He and I got along immediately. Akito watched us talk about a book we had both read and said, "Of course you'd like each other," which I took as a compliment. "Are you jealous?" I asked him later. "Of what? You clearly have a type." "What type?" He looked at me. "People who actually listen." "You listen," I said. "I know," he said. "That's my point." I thought about that for a while. Then I said, "You're very aware of yourself." "I've had a lot of time to think about what I want," he said. "Since October. You're not going to let that go." "Absolutely not." Spring came to our school the way it always does, suddenly, like it had been waiting just around the corner, and decided today was the day. The courtyard filled with pale pink petals from trees that had been bare all winter. The air turned soft. People started leaving windows open. Somewhere in the story I remembered, spring was when things resolved, when everything that had been held back finally arrived. I was sitting on the roof with Akito. We came up here sometimes, in the late afternoon when it was quiet. He had introduced me to this place. I had introduced him to the coffee from the convenience store around the corner that was better than anything in the vending machines. We had made trades like that, all year, small pieces. "I've been thinking," he said. "Dangerous," I said. "You say that every time, because it's always true." He smiled. He was sitting beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched, looking out at the school grounds below. The light was going gold and long, one of those afternoons that looks like something important. "I've been thinking," he tried again, "that a year ago I had a completely different picture of what this year would look like." "Same," I said. "Better or worse?" I thought about it honestly, about the version of this year where I stayed cold, where I let the plot happen without touching it, where I graduated as a footnote and went on to a life I had not looked forward to. "Better," I said, "much better." He turned to look at me. "I want to keep doing this, after graduation. I know that's not for another year, but I want you to know I'm thinking past the year." I looked at him. "That's forward planning. I'm a forward planning kind of person." "I didn't know that about you." "There are things you don't know about me yet." A pause. "I find that extremely promising." I thought about the original story, the version where Kurosawa Ren was a bitter, cold, scheming antagonist who got publicly humiliated in chapter 22 and presumably disappeared after that. I thought about what that person never got, never had to look forward to. "Akito," I said. "Yeah, I'm glad I gave you back the notebook." He blinked. Then, "You're glad you gave Sora's notebook to me?" "It started everything. You asked if she was okay and I thought you were strange, and then you gave me your coffee and I decided to push you together and everything went completely wrong in the best possible way." He stared at me. "You tried to set me up with Sora?" "For months," I said. "You were supposed to fall for her. That was the plan." He was quiet for a moment. Then he put his head back and laughed so hard his shoulders shook. "What?" I said. "You were playing matchmaker," he said, still laughing. "For me. And Sora." "Yes. Ren, I was never interested in Sora. I know that now. I was interested in you from the first week. I know that now also. I thought you were cold and interesting, and I wanted to figure you out." "And?" He looked at me with an expression I recognized by now, soft. The soft face Sora had described, the one that was, apparently, specifically for me. "And I was right," he said. "You're extraordinary. You're exactly who you decided to be, not who anyone expected, and you somehow made everything around you better without meaning to." A pause. "You were supposed to be the villain, and instead, you're the best person I know." Something in my chest did the warm thing it always did. "You're very good at saying things," I said. "I've been practicing since October." "Please stop bringing up October." "Never." He reached over and took my hand. Just held it lightly, like something he had permission for, which he did. "Thank you for the notebook. It wasn't even mine to give." Still, he squeezed once. "Thank you." Below us, the courtyard was full of students walking home, talking, laughing, living. Normal and ordinary. The story I remembered had ended cleanly, with its characters in their designated places, doing what they were written to do. This was not that story. This was the one that had been rewritten somewhere along the way. The one where the villain went home, read too many books, panicked extensively, and then accidentally became someone worth knowing by being himself instead of the part he was handed. I looked at the sky, pale blue going pink, petals falling somewhere below. "Hey, Akito," I said. I don't know how this ends." He looked at me. "Neither do I. That used to scare me. And now?" I thought about it, about not knowing. About stories with no fixed ending, no chapter 22 waiting, no plotted humiliation, and no predetermined love interest. About waking up every day in a life that was mine to write. "Now," I said, "I think I like it." He smiled, wide and easy and real. "Good," he said. Me too. The petals kept falling, the light kept going gold. Somewhere in the school below, life was happening in all its loud, complicated, ordinary glory. And I was in it, not as a villain, not as an obstacle, not as a plot device or an antagonist or a footnote in someone else's love story. Just as Kurosawa Ren, who gave back a notebook, got given a cup of coffee, made a lot of terrible plans, and ended up somewhere better than anything that had ever been written for him. Which, when you think about it, is maybe the best kind of story, the kind that surprises you.